Got it.
He needs my help every now and then.
I need better glasses. Oh, I don't think they make them strong enough anymore. Oh, geez.
Oh man, that is bad.
Okay, I'm not that bad yet. Just use bold and all caps when you send in the stuff to me. 30 seconds, you idiot. No guests, just us. Kara and Joshua, they're here with me.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
As long as we don't mess with it. Good Lord, you press the wrong button and the whole thing just goes up in smoke. It is. Trust me, we found that out the hard way. Nothing like the last minute before the show. Panic. Oh my God. Kira's over there. I can't hear myself. Maybe that's a good thing. Just talk and just let it go.
They're so mean to me. I'm a punching bag.
Okay. You're the wooden block.
How do you do the wave?
All right, guys, we're getting ready to go. Everybody that's joining us live. If it sounds like we're talking to a ghost, you guys can't hear the engineer.
Okay. Sounds good. You're right. This is where you can turn to get, I'm not so sure about all the time expert advice because we always like to review articles and the latest scientific data. But by golly, I'll tell you this much. We'll put it to you as straight as we possibly can because you need to have it straight because there's so much BS that is out there, so much misrepresentation. Today, I'm really looking excited. I'm excited about this show. You know, this is something we hear all the time. All the time.
Yes.
Tell them about it, Kara.
On a daily basis, when someone's talking about enrolling their dog in a board and train, their primary concern is the dog going to think that I have abandoned them? Are they going to miss me?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, some dogs are probably going, yay, please. I hope so. But yeah, do dogs miss us? I know we certainly miss them. You know, hey, I'll raise two hands on that. We miss our dogs whenever we board them or just separate from them from a long period of time. We do miss them. You miss your dogs?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'm very, memorable or not, but I definitely miss them.
It looks like Dave misses me something terrible when I come home. I mean, he is like shaking tip to tail. He's so excited to see me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like he's missing me.
You know, so people ask all the time, will my dog miss me when I leave him? And will my dog forget me? Will my dog think that I've abandoned it? So what really does happen? You know, we don't know for sure. Do dogs miss us like we miss them? You know, it's extremely gratifying to feel like we are needed and wanted. No one wants to be skipped. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen the owners felt pain. You could read it all over their facial features, their body English. When their dog comes into the lobby, is brought into the lobby after a very long stay, and the dog goes, hey, how you doing? And out to the car it goes. They they're in pain. They really are. It's kind of like you whiff it. Someone throws you a ball and you whiff it and the dog's just gone. And it's pain.
It is. You can see it in their faces. And a lot of times they cry in our lobby when they're leaving the dogs.
Absolutely.
Feel for them.
So no one wants to feel like they're not wanted or they're not needed.
Right. We had a client just recently during its turnover lesson. They were coming to pick their dog up from our board and train program, and the trainer was going to go get the dog, and they expressed, if he doesn't remember me, I'm going to be so upset. And so that was their primary concern, not how well the dog behaved, whether the dog remembered them or not.
Yeah, that's always a concern. They're worried about that, especially if you have a rescue dog or, that you adopted maybe from a shelter. And now for whatever reason, you need to leave the dog with someone else's care. And you think maybe the dog thinks I abandoned it. A lot of pain, a lot of stress responses being mobilized on both part of the owner and the dog during the separation. If we do feel needed and wanted, then we must be missed, right?
Well, I would think so.
So therefore, if our dogs are really happy to see us when we come back after a separation, well, then they do need me. They do want me. Therefore, we are missed. But, I think the greater question here is, what really happens to your dog when it is separated from you? Is a joyful reunion a sign of missing you, or is it the culmination of a stressful event?
It also, I have 3 different dogs and I get 3 different responses when I come in. We just did a promo video, and it illustrated how I have 2 dogs that greet me at the door when I come home, and then I have 1 dog who does not care. He literally does not care that I just walked through the door. We actually captured it in the promo video, and I bet a lot of people think it was staged. It was the second take. The only reason we did the second take is the other 2 dogs messed up. He gave out a perfect yawn in the video, and that was not him acting in any way, shape, or form. So it depends on the dog how they respond to you.
Yeah. So I do think it is better to focus on what happens to you as the dog owner and what happens to the dog. Do we have problems? Do we have psychological problems? Do we have physiological problems? Because being aware of it allows us to have some control. And I'll talk more about that here in a second. What occurs when you leave your dog? So let's kind of hop right into it, because there's a research that was just done recently, and this was done at the University of Lauren in Budapest, Hungary. And the research basically calls to question what happens when dogs are left by their owners, and it really highlights separation-related disorder dogs. Sometimes we know this as separation anxiety. Is there a hyper-attachment to the owner? And if there is a hyper-attachment to the owner, does the condition worsen in the separation or the absence of the owner? They also wanted to know, if an owner has a particular attachment style, does that affect the behavior of their dog when they come back and greet the dog, when they return after minutes after they leave? What occurs when the owner leaves the dog? So it's a pretty good study, but the biggest thing that they really came about on this study here is that they do believe. Now, no one knows and no one has applied or attached any sort of attachment styles to dogs. Not at this point yet. I guarantee you that is coming as we start to move more and more toward this anthropomorphic line. But when I talk about attachment styles, I'm talking about either Mary Ainsworth or Dr. John Bowlby. And Dr. John Bowlby was the first psychologist to study attachment styles. And he basically classified what kind of styles do children have, infants have, and young children have towards their parents. And he kind of came up with 4 different types of styles. One's called secure, and this is a very balanced child or very balanced adult. Now we've applied these attachment styles to adults, and we're starting to lean in that direction to applying them to dogs, but they're just very secure people, very balanced in caregiving, very balanced in reception of that caregiving. But then you have the ambivalent attachment or insecure or preoccupied, again, depending upon who's the scientist that is promulgating all this information out there. But anytime you have the ambivalent attachment or the insecure or preoccupied, that person will be upset by separation, especially that child. They don't feel that the caregiver will meet their needs for whatever reason. They just don't feel like my needs will be met by the caregiver. And then there's avoidant attachment. And avoidant attachment is, I really don't care. I'm going to do my own thing. You're over there. You do your thing. I'm just not that attached to you. And then there's a disorganized attachment. And that's unclear. You can't pick up on what's happening. It's unclear. The caregiver acts apprehensive sometimes and reassuring other times. So again, you start now that you've heard that, you start thinking, what kind of attachment style do I have? Well, it doesn't matter, because what they found out in this study was this. First of all, separation related disorders. That is the number one diagnosis that is given to dogs during 40% of veterinary visits. That is a condition that's attached to over 40% of the dogs in this country. But the problem with it is no one knows. There is no known. Although SRD is one of the most studied behavioral problems in dogs, its etiology is still obscure. They believe that potential causes range anywhere from any sort of negative early experiences, such as being separated from its mother too soon. Again, now we're talking about dogs. Traumatic experiences while the dog was separated from the caregiver. And I've told about episodes of that before. And then also inheritable factors. Absolutely. I think that is the number one culprit. And this study does hone in on that as the number one culprit. Additionally, dogs with SRD do not use the owner as a secure base, and they cannot be easily calmed down by the return of the owner after separation. That's directly from the study itself. And where they hone in on is this. We have a problem with separation anxiety or separation related disorder, however you want to call it, in dogs. That's a known fact. It's one of the major things that I see when I'm dealing with fearful and aggressive dogs. It's one of the number one reasons why chemicals are used to balance neurochemical issues in these dogs. I do believe it's definitely hereditary. But let's just go into all dogs, not just dogs with SRD. I'm just telling you about this study here because what it really came up with is this. Here's the big takeaway from the study. And it's not just this study. Other scientists and other authors, and there's more research available to you. I'll make sure I put links to this research on our website, on the radio show tab, that you can refer to. But here's the big takeaway. We are finding out that it's not you that creates any sort of stress response in the animal when you leave. It's the separation itself. Meaning this study showed that dogs, regardless of who left them, whether it was the owner that left them, whether it was a substitute caregiver that left them, it doesn't matter. It's the separation. It is the social isolation. So now, why am I talking about all this? Because when we talk about dogs that are missing us, that they could be missing us, are they dwelling the whole time that they're in a kennel, or the whole time that they're with a pet sitter, or left with unfamiliar family members, distant family members? Are they dwelling on the thought that, oh my, have I been abandoned? Will my owners ever return to me? I wonder what they're doing. Are they on a distant beach somewhere? Why didn't they take me? Oh gosh, I can't wait till they return. Is that really what's happening when you leave your dog? No, nothing. There's nothing from a scientific level in any sort of way that would indicate that's what's happening. Mostly because we understand how dogs think. Where is their memory? What gets parked in the cortex and what is more in the hippocampus type area? What is more short-term memory versus long-term memory? Long-term memory is going to be more associated with survival type needs. The animal learns how to hunt a certain animal, learns what season is the best time to hunt that animal. When do caribou migrate? Dogs learn the same thing. When do I eat? What time do I eat? Where's my food found? Who is my caregiver? Things of that sort. But when dogs are left, we need to start thinking about something here. Okay, in the past, I've talked about physiological factors associated with your stress response. At the end of the day, it's all about stress. You've read it, you've heard it, stress kills. Stress is bad for you. Oh my gosh, we're just now learning within the last couple of years how bad it is for you. Elevated stress responses maintained prolonged or at very high levels will damage the organism. It leads to hypertension, which then leads to cardiovascular problems. It causes memory issues as it prolongs itself. It causes diabetes. The list goes on and on and on. We were designed by nature to deal with mild to moderate transient stress only for a short period of time, to escape the animal that's trying to eat us, to escape the human that's trying to attack us. We were not designed for prolonged stress. We do not have biological factors in our body that allow us to deal with prolonged stress. So where I'm going with this is animals were tested, both dogs, primates, rats, while they were separated from their colonies, from their packs, and so on and so forth. And what they found out is this. First of all, how stressed you become under that conditions is a hereditary factor. That's a physiological issue. That's the neurochemical disorder and hereditary conditions that predisposes the dog to a higher modulation of the stress response. It also affects the speed in which the adrenals produce glucocorticoids, a steroid hormone that is released during the stress response. And that bad boy is responsible for so much of the damage that occurs to mammals when it's been maintained in the bloodstream at unusually high levels over a long period of time. And then, of course, that leads into and dovetails right into the stressor, the duration of the stressor itself. Okay, so when a dog goes into boarding or a dog is left with a pet sitter that it does not know this. I don't care what the advertisements are. I don't care how much they say, oh, your dog's going to love it here. It's going to have the time of its life. It's all going to be wonderful. It's going to be a staycation for the dog. I'm going to tell you this much. If they've never been in that place, never left under those conditions, your dog will be stressed. And no doubt, if you care anything about your dog, you also will be stressed. So let's just think about that. And what do we do about that? Knowledge is power. Sticking your head in the sand and ignoring something is not power. Power means control. So we've learned that there are 4 factors. Now, you guys need to write this down. So if you're just listening to this while you're driving in the car, wherever you go, make sure you download it and write this down, because this applies to you, human, you dog owner, along with your dog. So Kira and I board our dogs, and let's say we board them somewhere than at our facility. If that happens, our dogs will become stressed. Even if we board them here, they still become stressed for many reasons. But here's how they're going to try and cope with it. And here's why, first of all, they become stressed. So let me put that first. Here's why. Number one, anytime an animal is placed in a novel situation, a novel environment, never been there before, immediately studies have shown that by simply doing that, the animal will suppress its immune system. So the stress level will go up so high that the autoimmune system will shut down. It makes sense. Again, I'm an elk. I'm running from a wolf chasing me. I don't need to be worrying about catching any diseases at the moment. I need all of my energy mobilized to my legs so I can get away. I need enhanced memory. What route did I take last time? What tactic worked last time? My oxygen rate goes up. My heart beats faster. I'm not wasting energy going to my long ears or to support my antlers. It's going to my legs. It makes sense. So when your dog undergoes a novel situation, meaning I've never boarded here before, I've never had this pet sitter before, it is immediately going to be stressed. And not only does it cause the immune system to be suppressed, but it also causes an increased arousal and vigilance as the dog seeks the new rules of control and prediction. That's so important because there are four main psychological factors involved with stress. Why does stress even happen? Why do you become stressed when you're in a novel situation or a novel environment? Number one, lack of predictive information. Okay, I've never been here before. What time do they feed around this place? Who's that over there? Well, that person attacked me. Well, I don't know that dog that's barking. Why is that dog barking? There's no predictive information. You're searching again for the new rules of prediction. And then if you don't have prediction, then you start to lose control. I can't control what's happening to me here because I can't predict what's going to happen. At my home, I can predict what time I'm going to be fed. I can predict just about who it is that's going to feed me. I can predict where I'm going to be fed. But now all of these are gone. And whenever you can't predict what's going to happen to you, then you've lost control of the situation, which you then become stressed. Period. It's no different. You're lying in a dentist chair and they're drilling on you and you're thinking, are you almost finished? This is killing me. Imagine if the dentist says, oh, we have, I don't know when we'll get finished. Now you have no control over the situation. You can't predict when this thing is going to end. So you stay super stressed. But the dentist says, 2 more. All I got to do is just 2 more. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Well, you immediately start devising strategy to cope with that. You may have some sort of memory or some sort of distraction where you can just daydream about this. You can count backwards from 999 and work your way back, but you develop immediate coping mechanisms because now you have predictability, which then leaves you control. They've done this kind of study with rats many times. They've placed rats in a cage and they gave them a mild shock. And when I say shock, it's no more than you scruffing your feet with socks and a little static shock there. So they've done this with rats. And why they do it with the rats? Because the rat brain is very similar to the human brain, which is similar to the dog brain, so on and so forth. Well, when the rat received 50 shocks in an hour, it became extremely stressed. And they measured the stress, both physiologically and behaviorally in this rat. Then, after that, they gave it a warning. So a little tone went off 1 second before the shock. Stress dropped in half. Why? Because the tone meant that the shock was coming. They didn't lower the shock. It was the exact same level, but it meant it was coming, which meant I could relax during all those times in which I didn't hear the tone. So the animal actually relaxed. Your dog is no different. If I have predictive information and then I have control. I can control what happens to me. So they took that test a little bit further. So they said, so the rat still acts a bit frustrated. Maybe we can give it an outlet because if you don't have prediction, you can't predict what's going to happen to you. Therefore, you can't control what's going to happen to you. You can become extremely frustrated, very frustrated. So they gave the rat an outlet. They gave it a block of wood. And as soon as it got shocked, it ran straight over and started gnawing on that wood. And the stress response dropped even half of the half level that had already dropped from the tone. Then they took a step further. They gave it another rat in the cage. And that's kind of funny in just a little way there because now when the shock went off, the rat ran over, sat next to the other rat, and bit him. So he used the other rat as a piece of wood, but it gave the rat an outlet in which they measured the stress response and it had dropped to almost nothing. So your dog, when it comes into a boarding situation or is left by you with a pet sitter, and again, you see me going back and forth with both of them, they can't predict, which means I lost control, which means I become very frustrated. And lastly, there's the lack of social support. Now, they've also done studies in which they placed rats in cages, again, gave them shocks, but they put them in a cage with a bunch of rats that they don't know. I don't know these rats. And the stress response was not lowered the least bit by being in the company of rats I didn't know. But then they put the rat in a cage with other rats that it did know. And the stress response dropped more than in half. So these are important takeaways that we can take away whenever we are separated from our dogs. Now, because if we know what's going to happen, then that gives us some control. It gives us predictive information. Your dog is left in a boarding situation. I cannot predict. I don't know when I'm going to get fed. I'm not being in an environment in which I have social support. I don't know any of these dogs. I don't know any of these people. I have no social support. I, and if I'm just kept in a cage, I have no way to vent my frustration. I have no sort of outlet. And that's why many animals will turn to themselves. They'll lick their paws and develop lick granulomas or bite on their body or bite on the cage itself because they must have an outlet. It's why us, when we're stressed, oh, maybe we exercise. Oh, and by the way, the studies have they've done studies on that. So yeah, exercise is great unless you don't enjoy it. If you're forcing yourself to exercise and you don't enjoy the exercise, you actually cause yourself to be more stressed. So you're not achieving the benefit of the exercise. Uh, that's me, guys. I'm sorry. When I go down a rabbit hole, I go straight down the hole, and on every dendrite that is branching off of that hole, there I go. That's just the way my brain works. So please put up with it and bear with it because I am getting to a point here. So me, I kind of like knowing this information about my dog. Okay, yeah, he is going to go into a boarding situation. He doesn't know the other dogs there. Does he not know the other people there? Is he going to be stressed? Well, I'll tell you what, now all of a sudden, just me knowing that can cause me to be stressed, but can also cause me to take control. So, what do you do about it? Well, number one, know this. If you're doing a pet sitter situation, then you may want to have your dog become very familiar with that particular pet sitter. However, do know this, there will still be stress because the predictive information will not be available to the animal. Case in point, I'm the dog. I get fed every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 6 p.m. All right. Unless that pet sitter shows up at exactly 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., your dog will become stressed. Absolutely. And that's going to happen. And I don't care who they are. I'm just putting it out there straight. I'm not getting on to people. I'm just putting it to you straight because you need to hear it straight. Hey, I got caught by the train. The last house I had to visit, the dog had decided that the toilet paper roll was the greatest toy it had ever discovered in its life. And that was all over the house. I had more dogs than what I should have had because people who I thought were going to cancel didn't cancel and so on and so forth. Meaning, yeah, you can leave your dog at home. It's in an environment in which it is accustomed to being, but everything else is gone. Gone. I lost my social support. I can't predict when the pet sitters are showing up at my house. I don't know what I'm going to get fed and when I'm going to get fed. Again, stress. So what do you do about that? Make sure, get on a tight schedule. Make sure they can pretty much within reason guarantee that schedule. Make sure that your dog knows who they are. And then relax. Dogs don't die from this. Remember, we have the biology to overcome mild to moderate transient stress. We have that biology. Stress is good. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing when it's like that. It only becomes bad when it's very severe or it's prolonged. It's pathological. So now I'm boarding, same thing. Hey, maybe go check out the place. Hang out there for a little while. Ask permission. Hey, can I come in and just hang out for about an hour? And if they say yes, just make sure you oblige by their rules. They may not have insurance that covers non-customers at that time, so on and so forth. They know what's hazardous and what's not. But yeah, you may want to hang out because now you can see, hey, this is where my dog is going to stay. This is what time do you guys feed? If you know this a week in advance, hey, if they say, well, we feed every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 6 p.m. And if your dog eats at a different schedule, shift it. About a week prior, shift it so that it meets the schedule in which the boarding facility has. That helps out a lot. Also, bring something for your dog to have an outlet, some sort of favorite toy or favorite bone or what have you. So I've got an outlet, I can chew on it. And if they allow play or they do pack boarding like we do, then elect that. Because in the beginning, no, I don't know you. You don't know me. But that's how you get to know one another, by being around one another. So the dog has an appropriate pack member to be with, then that will immediately lower their stress response as soon as they feel they have social support. Social support. So vitally important. So these are all just things that we can do. Because once you're gone, you're gone. It doesn't matter if you're a preoccupied attachment style. I mean, you're a helicopter parent or you're an avoidant type parent where you're thinking, I don't really care if I have a dog, honestly. There are a lot of dog owners like that. They get into it and they go, oh, what the heck did I do? What was I thinking? I don't really care about the dog. I mean, my gosh, it's cramping my lifestyle here. Well, here's something else that was surprising from this little research that was done over in Denmark in Hungary, that the attachment style of the owners that were more dismissive, avoidant, meaning the dog owner who is not the helicopter dog owner, they believe has contributed to dogs developing separation related disorders. Now that kind of goes against the grain because a lot of people think, well, I would think that the smothering helicopter parent will create a condition in which the dog always has to be around them, clings to them, all of this stuff. But no, what they're finding out is this. Even when you're around, you're not really super predictable because that type of owner doesn't feed at regular times. In other words, the care and welfare of their dog is not their priority. So if they dole out a pet, it's usually, well, why'd you do that? What did I do to earn that? Same thing with punishment. What the heck was that all about? What did I do? Feeding. Oh my God, I'm hungry. When do we get fed? So the animal starts to become super stressed even when the owner's around because there's no predictive information. And if you don't have predictive, you don't have control. If you have both of those, you become frustrated. And if you don't have an outlet, your stress response goes even higher. And if you don't have social support as a social animal, it's game over. So guys, it's pretty, I've actually learned a few things with some of this latest research I've been digging into really deep to uncover the results of a lot of studies and a lot of feedback and drawing conclusions back and forth between human and dog, placing limitations where the dog brain can only go so far and the human condition can go a little bit further. But I'm here to tell you, the brains are very similar. Cortex, limbic system, hippocampus, amygdala, cerebellum, you name it. All of these components are very similar and they're going to be affected in much the same way. So I'm telling you what, if we ever have to leave our dog somewhere, if that I do not know where this place is, I'm sorry, I've never left my dogs there. It's a novel situation, a novel environment. I'm going to know, okay, my dog's going to become stressed. What can I do to minimize that stress? What can I do? Couple things. One, I'm going to go visit that place. And I'm not going to take just the 1 minute or 10-minute tour. I'm going to go take the kind of working visit.
Can you bring
situation.
your dog? I mean, wouldn't it be a great idea to schedule like a day of daycare or something like that? Go with
absolutely.
your dog.
If they offer that, you bet. The more familiar, again, I've said it 1,000 times, dogs thrive on the familiar. Again, for all the four main reasons that I've stated in the past.
As far as the difference between boarding and staying at home, is there an argument to be made that for a dog left in its own territory at home might be more stressful considering it's kind of holding down the fort by itself and then the strangers walking in, threatening them in their own territory versus just going to some place that they have no claim over and everything is new? Would it be easier for them to pick up a new routine versus an environment in which an established routine was there now all of a sudden is being completely messed up?
I think there's so many factors. So you say yes and no back and forth, just depending upon the dog's genetic baseline. Am I predisposed? Am I one of these animals that becomes overly stressed? We see human beings all the time subjected to the same stressor. Some, piece of cake. I'm going to handle that like an all-day sucker. And others, they fold up like a lawn chair. We see this. This is part of the hereditary factor that's involved. But I will say one thing. The environment in which the dog is typically at a commercial boarding facility, at least they can control the environment in which the dog is in, if that makes any sense to you, meaning you are in this cage. We do turn off the lights at this time. We turn them on at that time. if everything is pretty consistent, then that animal is going to pick up on it much faster. Because remember, I have hypervigilance. I'm watching everything. I'm listening to everything because I'm trying to find out the new rules of control and predictive information. They immediately try to seek that out. So, and a lot of people also have to understand too, okay, I leave my dog at home. Okay, well, here's what happens. You're not there, and you're not there during the night. So many dogs have become very used to humans leaving during the day because they go to work or they go run errands or whatever have you. But they always return. And usually by X, whatever time that is, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we're all in bed, period. Humans are here. The ones I know, my social support is here. But guess what? Now there's no one staying with your dog unless you have someone staying with your dog. And now you do have a human, and they'll just take them a little bit of time to become used to that human. And once they do, then they now have that social support. So, I'd be more in favor of the house sitter as long as the house sitter versus the just come and go type caregiving. As long as there's some sort of no fear factor. Again, there are many dogs who fear men. And all of a sudden you hire a man to watch your dog, and that could be very upsetting and cause even more stress. So anything that can become more familiar is better. But that is a good point there. A lot of people don't take that into account. I never thought about that. What happens come bedtime and no one's home? This is an animal that's very stressed. I've seen animals get stressed because they go on the 5 p.m. walk every day, but now all of a sudden we're not taking the 5 p.m. walk, and they become very stressed. Again, stress is fine, guys. There's nothing wrong with it. Dogs are going to be stressed. I always kind of make a joke and tell everyone when your dog comes into like our facility, they will be clicking their heels trying to get back to Kansas for about the first 2 days. That's called acclimation. That is learning the new rules of control and predictability. Once they've got that, then if you provide them with any sort of outlet for any frustration that sets in due to other factors, that's going to be awesome. They're going to take advantage of that. And once they get to know everyone, both the human component and the dog component, well, then now I have social support. And all of this is about minimizing the stress, not making it go away because it's not going to. It's about minimizing it, not creating a traumatic event, because traumatic events get parked in deep, dark places at a molecular level that the dog will never forget. And then soon you could start running out of options. I can't go anywhere because if I do, then my dog will be hyper stressed. Okay. And so if we've got that, then we kind of covered that area as well. One last little thing I want to put about, and that's just real quickly about senior dogs. It's been proven that aging induces many morphological and metabolic changes in the brain, which will eventually lead to a cognitive impairment and dementia called cognitive dysfunction syndrome in senior dogs. So if you're going to be boarding a senior dog or you're going to have a pet sitter watch a senior dog, kind of take that into account as well. Because when that happens, then just by itself, it creates its own problem. I've owned dogs like that. Kira and I talked about, I think on the last show, which we owned the dog that put himself in timeout. He would just put himself in his own timeout. He would go lay down and lie down and look at a corner and not move away from it. Now it's just a matter of providing good care. That animal will probably be less stressed because it'll go in and out to, its happy place and not so happy place, in and out. But studies have shown that they're actually a little bit less stressed. So no concern with that at all. Okay.
We have a couple of questions that were sparked from this discussion. So
Okay.
Can I ask?
Shoot them to me.
Okay. Do you think 40% diagnosed with separation anxiety is accurate, or do you think that's an overdiagnosis?
I think personally, I think it's over, but not by much. 20% of all dogs are deemed to be, and this is accurately, suffering from some sort of maladaptive condition. I think that is absolutely correct. Now, again, there are severities of that. Every dog, remember, will have separation anxiety to a degree. When you're a hypersocial creature and you don't have social support, like I've been saying, you will be stressed. But I think that is an exaggeration of that number because it's being taken, that number was arrived from the polling of veterinarians. And again, nothing against you veterinarians out there, but I just call into question the ability to what a veterinarian is going to rely upon is the feedback from the owner's testimony. And this little research that I talked about, this little study that was done, one thing that they definitely said at the end of it was that biases in the owner's interpretation of their dog separation behavior also suggests that veterinarians and behavior specialists should be aware that owners' characteristics influence how they interpret and report behavior problems. Amen. Meaning, if you're an anxious attachment style person, preoccupied, you are going to report inaccurately your dog's behavioral symptoms under any condition.
Yeah, we've had clients who will, or just people I know in general, will look at a picture of their dog and say, "Oh my gosh, that dog, he looks so sad." And in the picture at the moment, the dog was happy as could be. Or we even had one where they claimed that the dog looked thirsty. And so, you can't judge
Sorry.
you can't take anything that people say as accurate assessment of what's going on.
Yeah, because there's so many things that can again, that can cloud that the findings that you have, whatever conclusion that you arrive at. So I don't think it's accurate cure. I think that again, I owned a veterinary hospital, so I kind of know what goes on in there. And you rely so much upon the interpretation of the dog's owner,
Yeah.
which is then going to be biased based upon their attachment style. You got to depend everything on that. So no, I think it's lower, but I would park it somewhere around 30%. I really would.
Okay. So the second one that came up was, does a dog that is diagnosed with separation anxiety have a greater chance of developing a codependency, which we call a secure base attachment, with the owner?
No, well, used to. When I say used to, just less than even 2 years ago, that was the thought. That's what we believed. But now new studies, new advancements, brain imaging, all this technology that we have, and all this funding that is going into this research. And here's why the funding, by the way, is going into this research. It is predicted that by the year 2020, okay, so what are we right now, 2019? That depression will be the number 2 disability in the world. Number 2. The second most severe condition in human beings will be depression.
Wow.
It causes over 800,000 suicides per year. And you can have depression and never once try to commit suicide. You have lower dopamine levels, so on and so forth, and you can't even get out of the bed, so let alone now kill yourself. So it's a problem. That's why it's being studied. So we know so much more than what we've known before. But we used to believe that dogs that had a secure base attachment to their owners, that they would suffer even a greater effect when their owners leave. But again, now all of a sudden we've moved forward and said, okay, well, tell you what, let's let this dog live with someone else for about a week and let them start leaving the dog. Exact same stress response. That's remarkable. So in other words, it's not the owner. Yes, the dog can start to develop a secure base attachment because remember, dogs mirror their owner's stress response. So you come home, you're all nervous, you're all afraid, you're all this and that. Then your dog's going, oh my God, and here we go. My heart starts beating faster from my sympathetic nervous system. My eyeballs become dilated, my memory's enhanced, my sensory capabilities enhanced, so on and so forth. Down the line we go because they mirror their owner's stress response. So that will create clinginess right then and there because, oh my God, if there's something horrible going on, strength in numbers. You may be a weak owner, but at least it's better that 2 of us face it. Misery does love company, so on and so forth. We can sit there all day long and come up with these little examples. But yeah, there is strength in numbers. And remember, I do know you. And remember the rat that's in the cage. So just by the fact that I do know you, I'm familiar with you, it's not a novel situation any longer. My stress response will drop. And my coping mechanism, one of them, there'll be many, will be clinging to you. But once you leave, it's the stress itself. It's the separation itself. And now if I'm frustrated, then yeah, I could take it out on myself. I could take it out on your leather sofa, on the surrounding perimeter of a door, the door frame, that rip the blinds down. This is frustration. And frustration creates so many things. One of the things that you and I were kind of talking about earlier, Joshua, before the show, was what's known as stress-induced displacement of aggression. And you're walking two dogs. They're both your dogs. They see another dog coming. One dog goes, rah, 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 and you say, no. And it turns and bites the other dog next to it. Again, that's the rat in the cage.
Yep.
It just goes over and bites the other animal, or it turns and bites you. That's an outlet for frustration. So again, I took a long route in answering that question, but I just wanted to make sure it was very thorough and maybe it highlighted a few other areas that could become questions.
That's good. That's good.
All right. Anything to add there, Joshua?
Well, one thing I guess is that I think that the reason that we perceive the, kind of the helicopter owner as the one that might have the more fearful dog, or the one that has the separation anxiety worse, is because we're actually misinterpreting the fact that the reason that the dog is fearful in the beginning is because it probably had a predisposition to be fearful. And then because it was fearful, the helicopter type attachment style actually just reinforced that behavior over and over and over again, because they thought coddling and things like that. So that's probably more so the reason why we make that association more so. It's just, it was made worse by the situation, not caused. Does that make sense?
It not only does it make sense, but it's a good point that I will touch on, and I'll try to do it next episode because it's really deep and I want to save time to answer some questions here. But there is a condition known as learned helplessness. And you just touched all over that learned helplessness. So I'm going to make myself a little note here. I'll have Kira write it down here. I want to talk about learned helplessness on the next episode that we have, because that will need about 15 minutes for me to be able to explain it, hopefully in a way that everyone's not walking away going, what the heck was Bryan talking about?
What did he say?
That dude went down a rabbit hole that has no bottom, obviously. So I want to give it some thought, and I want to put it all together in a way that I hopefully will be beneficial to everyone. Okay, let's hop on to those questions. And we got a couple of them. I want to attend to those real quickly here and see what we can do about it.
Got it. I have a very confident 1-year-old German Shepherd Lab mix. She has been bratty since she was a very young puppy. Now that she's bigger, her bratty side is kind of scary. She growls and lunges at me when I ask her to do something like sit down or go outside. Have I ruined her? Can I train this out of her?
Go ahead, Joshua.
Joshua's just giggling over there.
He's over there, kind of got this little giggle. I'm just like, jump on it, man.
The reason I'm giggling is because it's 1-year-old German Shepherd. It's mouthy and it's bitey and things like that. It reminds me of a dog that we had in training named Lily. Here it was a German Shepherd, and she was just the exact same way. If you tried to put a collar on her, she would throw an ever-living fit and bite at you and all these things. But I guess is the question, what was the exact question on that part? It was more so.
She wants to know if she's ruined her. What can she do to train that out of her?
No, you have not ruined her, because Lily is a very well-behaved German Shepherd now today with just some basic rules and boundaries. Just some, start by telling your dog no. And now let's say what is no. Okay, no to us is a word that is spelled N-O, and it means don't do whatever you're doing, or negative or opposite of yes, right? To the dog, make sure that there's some sort of consequence that is followed with the word no, or as a precursor to the word no. Don't just tell the dog no in your form. Make sure that you're giving the dog some sort of cost of making sure that they understand that behavior is not accepted.
And I'm just going to take that a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole. So here we go again. This could be a control issue that's happening between human and dog. Why do dogs snarl? Why do they show us their bratty side? Why do they lunge at us? They're trying to control the situation. And part of that control is influencing your behavior. Now let's take it back in time. How did we arrive at this point? Through experimentation on the part of the animal. I received something that to me was probably threatening. Why was it threatening? Could have been my hereditary factors. It could be the fact that I suffered a traumatic experience when I was young, so on and so forth. But either way, something caused the animal to act. And when it acted, it got a result. And the fact that the dog is still doing this and actually starting to escalate is nothing more than signaling between dog and human. It's no different than the first time a dog sees someone approaching your yard, first time ever. Just goes, woof, woof. Hey guys, there's someone here. There's something here. Fast forward 6 months from now. Now they're tearing the door down. Because why? I keep trying to control the situation. You keep showing back up again. And I keep going wolf, growl, bark, lunge, and you still keep showing up. So again, the same sort of thing is happening here in which the person keeps showing up. They keep trying to make the animal do commands and the animal saying, I don't want to do them. Maybe I'm afraid of doing them. And that's the greatest thing there. I would have to look at this and say, are we dealing with a maladaptive animal whose perception of the events that are occurring is that of a threat to me when it really should not be? Another dog may not perceive it as that and go, oh, yeah, I'll do it. I'll lay down. I got it. I can figure it out. Because that's one of the things I really love about good. Notice how you use the word good or proper obedience training. It gives the animal control. Control. It gives it predictive information. It gives it social support. I'm walking down the sidewalk. I see someone coming with their dog. My dog happens to perceive that approaching person and dog as a threat. I say, hey, I got it, buddy. I got it. Lean on me. I'm a caregiver that can absolutely take care of your welfare during the situation. And the animal stress response lowers. And anytime that lowers, then the outward behavioral signs and the physiological signs will drop. So in this situation here, it's all about control. And like you said, Josh, obedience is a really good thing because it gives the animal control. I say sit. If you sit, then here's something that occurs. And the outcome is up to you, dog. You can control the outcome once, because now you're giving it predictive information as well. Because I know what happens if I fail to sit. Again, once they go through all the mechanisms of simply learning the word sit. First time you say sit to a dog, you might as well say scuba nog. They got to go through all that first. But once they do, now they can control the outcome. But somehow, some way, this animal decided that aggression works for me. And I'm going to keep using that aggression. In fact, the older I become, the more capable I become at dispensing it, the more determined I become. So I would, no matter what, I would get this under control right now with a 1-year-old dog before this turns into a 2 or 3-year-old dog. Because now you could actually be talking about a trip to the hospital or even a fatality. Either way, if it's something fearful, we got to find that thing out because we can use chemicals to help stabilize that neurochemical disorder. We can exercise some counter conditioning if we already have molecular memory that's leaning in the direction which I perceive this whole situation as a threat. And we can start to exact control. Hey, I'm going to control you and you get to control your outcome. That's a wonderful day for everyone. So again, not to go too deep on that, but I just want to add those 2 cents in there.
That was good. Okay. Second question. I have 4 dogs, all males. In previous episodes, I have heard you use the term principle of resemblance. What does that term mean? And does it have any effect on my dog's behavior toward each other?
Amen. It does. It has a whole lot to do with it. The principle of resemblance is basically nature's use of a visual signaling mechanism, using a visual signal. It was put in place to blunt aggression. So the way it works is I'm a wolf or I'm a dog and I have offspring and my offspring start to grow. I talked about the 1-year-old German Shepherd, get this thing under control before it becomes 2. Amen. One day, Papa Wolf or Papa Dog or Mama Wolf or Mama Wolf, Dog looks across the way and goes, hey, have you seen Mrs. lately or Junior? That boy's about head level with me and he's got a bit of an attitude. Meaning these dogs have arrived at full maturity. The fact that they can look eye level, they're the same gender, means you resemble me. And that means you just shifted from being my offspring or being an animal I should not be concerned with, or I was not concerned with, but I now am. You just went from that offspring, or again, in the household in which it was never their offspring, just another dog that you brought into the household, you just became an opponent. And it could have been that the second you walked in the door, the very second you walked in the door. But over a period of time, typically as dogs age, they grow larger, they grow more determined. They are getting ready. Mother Nature says, you need to leave. And she uses dispersing to blunt aggression. So dad looks across the way and goes, huh, Junior's got some size on him. He looks like me. He's about as tall as I am. He's got an attitude. I think it's time for him to go. Does this sound familiar? Are you a parent? Got college age kids? You're looking across the way going, you know, Kara, I think it's time for them to go. And so we use dispersing. We kick them to the curb. We say, there's a university that you can go live at for the next 4 years. There's an apartment you can live in and you can get a job. Sound familiar? You bet it does. Again, because we're humans and we are smart enough and live long enough and well enough that we don't have to act like wolves who are governed by the law of limited resources and starve half of their lifetime. It's more pronounced for them. So you bet it will. I always tell people all the time, if you're going to own more than one dog, do your very best to at least own opposite genders. Opposite genders. In the wild, and it doesn't matter if it's among lions, if it doesn't matter if it's among East African hunting dogs, wolves, you name it. In the wild, competition is always most fierce within its own gender. Always has been, always will be. I need to worry about Junior, and Kira, you need to worry about Mrs. You bet it does.
And that's the point I was going to make, is that gender has a whole bunch to do with it. Like I always say, I have 3 different dogs at home, 2 female, 1 male. The male and is never getting any tiffs with the females. It's always the 2 females, whether it's over a place on the dog bed or food that they've discovered or a toy. It's always the females that are getting in those tiffs.
Yeah, and in this situation here, again, it's all about control, guys. That's what this entire episode was about. Stressors will be incurred. You have 2 males against 2 males. If you don't want to rehome one, you don't want to disperse one of them as nature would do, then you've got to step in and control the situation. You definitely do. I always laugh when people say, Bryan, I need your help in making these 2 male dogs of mine get along. And I always say, I'm really glad you used the term make them, because that's the only way you're going to get this thing done, by being a good zookeeper. Or hey, I'll tell you what, you Fido, go lay over here in this corner, and you go over here and lay in this corner. You're controlling the situation there. Okay, guys, next week, we are going to talk about, is there such thing as pure play? You've heard me hit on it before. There was a question today about play. The listener that wrote that question, I will answer that next week, because our whole topic is there such a thing as pure play among dogs? Or is there an alternative motive for their play? If you own a daycare or you take your dog to daycare or dog park, you're going to want to tune in for this episode. And for those of you who reside around here locally, hey, this weekend I'm giving a free seminar on learn how to effectively communicate to your dog. So make sure you come in here, and it's at 10 a.m. from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
On Saturday.
On Saturday. So come in here and pick up on a few little tips here on how you can effectively communicate with your dog. All right, Joshua, where can they find us if they want to listen to us, or YouTube, whatever?
Definitely check out our Facebook and go to YouTube and subscribe, and you'll get all types of, funny skits and different informative videos. So
very good. All right, guys, we're going to check out of here. You have a great week. And once again, next week we talk about play. And if you have any questions from today's episode, send them in to Bryan with the Y at tamingthewild.com. And I promise I'll get with you and I'll answer those questions for you. See you guys next week. Thank you. All right. Those of you that are live, tuning in, watching what's happening around here, we really appreciate having you. We really like having those questions come in.
Oh, they're
like
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just may have to give me the elbow. I get so deep and I'm like in a trance. I'm just thinking so much. And sometimes my brain outruns my mouth and my mouth tries to catch up. And it's doing one of those where, hey, man, you used the wrong word or something. But anyway, just let me know when we have those. Please keep sending those things in. And those of you that are watching, I'll definitely do it next week on the radio show for the listeners. But what we do here, it requires a lot of work. I personally don't consider it work because I love what I do. But nevertheless, even just the promo videos that we do, oh, we love them. We love doing them. But man, it requires a lot of work, a lot of equipment, a lot of redos.
A
We
lot of
just,
time.
yeah, we
A lot
just
of
do
time.
those to
Yeah.
bring a little joy to your life and maybe just a moment in which you laugh. But more than anything, we've gotten in a lot of response here recently in which people have thanked us for what we do. They find that the information is very informative. And I cannot tell you how gratifying that is. Because there are times, when we're doing this show, like right now, I'm looking at a black hole. I don't get to see you. And I don't get to see the people who are listening. And you sometimes wonder, is there
Is
anyone
anybody
out there?
listening?
Yeah. Is there anyone there at all? Uh, are we just sitting here listening to ourselves? Or do we actually benefit people and their dogs? And the response that we've been getting lately shows that we do. And I'm telling you, that's like wind in our sails. It really is, because there are times there's so much work that goes into this, so much effort from everyone, from Kira getting those questions to Joshua helping me do the research. And it's just so much. You just don't realize what we put into this thing for you, for you. So again, hey, thank you so much. Those of you who have sent in those well wishes this week, good timing. Because they're good timing. So again, we're going to keep trying to move forward on this and just try and come up with topics that are thought provoking. I wonder what does happen when dogs play, and does my dog really miss me? And what can I do? And now that we found out today, well, actually, I'm not sure if they miss you or not, but they do become stressed. So what can we do to minimize that stress? What can we do to make sure it's that mild to moderate transient stress that we were all designed to have the biology to respond to? What can we do to make sure it stays there? It doesn't become that super severe stressor or the very prolonged stressor the dog has to stay for a month or so. What can we do? What are the responsibilities of the caregivers of that animal to lessen that as well? It's not just up to you as the owner. It's up to the people who promise to take care of your dog. They've got to do the same thing. So way cool. I hope that you guys picked up some information. I learned a lot by doing the research just for this episode.
Yep. Well, and everybody kind of weighed in on a poll that we had on the video that we did, and whether dogs miss us or not. 85% of you guys thought yes, that the dog does miss you, and 15% said no.
Dang it. I was going to have you put that out on the radio show. Why didn't you guys got to just throw elbows around here?
He had
Yeah.
it sitting there.
I
You
sat
just
right
didn't
there.
see it.
Oh, well, that's the only side of the card that I saw. Okay. So just behind the scenes, guys, anyone still tuned in, you hadn't tuned us out yet and headed off to lunch, whatever. Green circle means Joshua or Kira want to ask a question. They slide it over here next to me. I see it out the corner of my eye, and I give them the green light to go ahead and ask their question. It's kind of like a very polite elbow. So how in the world was I going to see this poll information on the other side called the red X mean I'm done? And Bryan, by the way, you should be done too, because we need to get off the darn air.
We had to go to the cards because Brian's shins couldn't take any more bruises.
Yeah, getting kicked here or whatever. But anyway, I didn't see that, but good. That's kind of neat to know that from the poll. All right, we're going to get out of here. I'm sure you guys got things to do. We got more things to do. We got to get ready for the next show and do our next promo and everything. You guys have a wonderful week. Think about the stuff that you learned today. Those 4 factors. Again, predictive information. Think about control. Think about outlets for frustration, and think about social support, even in your own lives. Have a great one. See you next week.